Exactly.
Yeah.
Seventh grade?
Quarters, and then we're back on March 31st with value propositions. Later in the quarter, we're going to be doing customer feedback, best practices, and viable product, public relations. We're going to have a great program in the spring, so please do join us. In the meantime, Waffle Wednesday is going to be happening over at Skirta Hall on March 15th. Righteous waffles, lots of really good networking over there. I strongly recommend it. And then over at Promotion HQ on March 23rd, kind of an interesting project with Cambria Grove, Spring Forward Women Leaders. They're going to be talking about women and the new administration and what that means for progress in the state of Washington and nationwide. So today, we're very lucky to have Tamara Power-Drutis speaking about establishing mentorship programs. We're going to also hear from the entrepreneurial law clinic after that, talking about consultative services employees. That's something that's come up a lot of new companies over the years. I've seen it happen. It's a really important topic. Now, about Tamara. Tamara is the executive director of CrossFit. CrossFit, if you haven't read CrossFit, you really should. It's an amazing journal, believing in the idea that a well-informed public is civically active and can be active in the best way possible. She's also the 2016-2017 Reynolds Journalism Institute Fellow, researching innovative methods for engaging news audiences. She has a background in strategic partnerships and innovation. She is the former communication coordinator at the University of Washington Center on Reinventing Public Education, which works on finding ways for K-12 education to get better, more technologically literate, more innovative. She began her career with Ross Strategic, supporting teams and executives working on policies and program development for national environmental information management systems. And she now sits on the advisory council for the 100 Campus Law Foundation, which is a 501c3 created from President Obama's education initiative. She was appointed to and served as special advisor to the Education USA program for the State Department. So incredibly wide-ranging background. We're very lucky to have her here today. Please take some down.
Well, thank you so much, and it's great to be back at Promotion. Big fan of the work that you do here, and I'm sorry for putting out. So I think that was a pretty good introduction to who I am and how I came about the role of CrossFit, but to give you a little bit of a sense of how I got into mentorship, I have benefited throughout my entire career from having excellent mentors, both in professional settings, personal settings, civic engagement opportunities, and those opened up incredible doors for me to work in a variety of different industries and different size organizations. It came to me about 5 years ago through conversations with other young professionals that is not something that is standard for everyone, that they have mentors that automatically come into their life or that naturally, organically develop those relationships. So working with the World Affairs Council to launch what is now an annual program of ski mentorship for women. And Experience Seattle is actually coming up on March 8th that happens every year around International Women's Day. And that got me thinking a lot more about how do you structure these programs, not just in a volunteer capacity, which the speed mentorship program is very much an opt-in. So the young mentees that join in are opting in to find someone to mentor them. The mentee or the mentors have been recruited to match those specific mentees, and so it's kind of a side program. But what does it look like to actually incorporate that into a business, hold on an institutional level, and then how do you begin growing that in startups so that it's scalable and at the core culture of the organization? I'd love to know just from the start kind of what you're hoping to see out of this today. What are the things that you want to use this information for? So maybe if just folks can shout out, what's the one thing that you want to take away from this session today, or what's the one thing you're hoping to use this information for?
I needed the first one myself, and also
Great, so finding mentors for yourself, right?
Giving employees a say.
Great, yeah. It's definitely, mentorship is very important for retention, so giving employees reasons to stay. Yeah.
Figuring out how to make the match actually beneficial.
Yeah, very important, and we'll talk a little bit about that in planning and doing pairing with dyads, but you know, a poor mentorship pairing where it's not something that has been opted into or where both people have been strategically paired up can be detrimental in terms of retention or in terms of morale. So it's great.
Maybe managing different views from different mentors. Two mentors have two different ideas, that's all something.
Okay, yeah, so conflicting input or conflicting advice. Interesting. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that. Anything else folks are about that today? Does anyone already manage a mentorship program in their startup organization? All right, well, great. Hopefully in a year you can all say yes to that. And we'll give you some of the groundwork here. I have my contact information on the last slide of this, and I'm happy to follow up if anyone wants to talk more about what it would look like to develop a program within your organizations or teams. So feel free to follow up with me afterward. So for today, I want to kick it off with just doing a little bit of defining what mentorship is and what it isn't, looking at different models of programs for employee development, so from mentorship, coaching, sponsorship, role models, that kind of thing, looking at what each of those is and how they compare. And then we'll go into a little bit of the benefits for mentorship programs for your organization and your teams. So coming into the retention component, what are the other benefits that we get from having mentorship programs in the first place. And then diving a little bit into how do you structure these programs, how do you pair people up, what kind of data collection do you want to include, what kind of baseline assessments, how do you review the program, and how do you improve it. And then we'll have some kind of data for questions folks have and how to kind of address. So Philip can join and define mentorship as a complex, iterative process in which two individuals of differing levels of experience and expertise are paired with the agreed upon goal of having the lesser skilled person grow and develop specific competencies. However, I would edit this definition. Mentorship began in that format, but has really evolved to be something where both members of a mentorship dyad can help develop the other. This is especially true when we're looking at pairings where one is a senior level, older member of a team with a young entry-level person, where we have a lot of entry-level people with extremely proficient technology skills. And so they have a lot that they can also teach as well. And so thinking about it in the traditional sense as one person is developing the other, I think misses a huge opportunity to do co-development and mentorship pairing. So there's a distinct difference there between those two definitions. But I'll be functioning under the definition of the second one, which is that mentorship dyad may include differences of strengths, may include differences of expertise and experience levels, but it doesn't mean that all of the information and coaching comes from one side to the other. So there are, like I said earlier, there are a lot of different ways that you can provide one-on-one or group coaching to your employees, and none of them are bad or wrong that I'm going to talk about, but I put an emphasis on mentorship because I think that it has the most benefits in a structural way in organizational culture. So a mentor is someone that enters into an agreement. So they have made a commitment to an individual to have that relationship and commit to developing them both personally and professionally in their relationship. They facilitate learning, they facilitate skill development, which has some similarities with a coach, which we'll go into in a second, but can also go beyond that. So looking at longer-term plans, career goals, aspirations, longer-term skill development. And they also provide guidance and advice. So beyond just, here are the skill sets that I'm going to coach you on so that you're able to do this specific task, how do you look at the whole person and develop the whole person? So they'll bring their knowledge or experience to the relationship. They'll also receive that knowledge and information and experience from their mentee. And then they'll make introductions. So I think in any strong, healthy mentorship relationship, it's not just a matter of the conversations that happen when the two people are together. It also has to do with what doors of that mentor are opening. What opportunities are they putting in front of them? Especially organizationally, how are you aligning the person that you're mentoring for promotions, for project needs, for opportunities that allow them to grow the skills that you work with them on. So even though mentorship programs in organizations tend to have a specific timeline on them, it's usually a 3-month, 6-month, 1-year, 3-year program. You'll probably set a specific timeline. I have yet to meet many mentorship pairings that don't continue the relationship afterward. Even if it doesn't continue in some kind of structured once-a-month engagement, a lot of the mentors that I've worked with over the years continue to be friends or become friends and evolve into that and continue to provide that coaching and mentorship to each other. So this is distinct from a coaching program, which is generally a more specific skill set oriented approach. So a coach will be one-on-one instruction. They'll be providing critical feedback that will help you grow in a specific skill area. So they'll be working to improve performance in that one specific area. This is much more focused on the professional role rather than looking at the whole person, rather than looking at the long term, where you want to go in your career. It's much more focused on perfecting and achieving outcomes in your current role. And then often, again, for a set period of time, but these don't have as much of a relationship building component to them, so often will kind of dissipate after the end of a set program. A role model, while also important, may not know that they are a role model. And so I think it's worth calling this out as a distinct difference, because oftentimes people have no idea that they're a role model for someone else, for a new person in the organization or for a younger member of their team. And so with that comes that this is kind of a role which you don't know what level of impact you may be having. It doesn't have direct involvement in helping a mentee develop their goals, their professional aspirations, their pathway, and it's much more of an unintentional influence, so setting a model for them. One of the newer areas that people focus on, and I think this will ultimately disrupt what mentorship looks like, so it's worth considering how you build this in, are having a senior level involvement in a mentee's life. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is part of the mentorship dyad, but to also think about the whole development of an individual. Who are the senior level leaders that are in the behind closed doors conversations that could open up doors for those individuals? So a sponsor or an advocate may not, like a role model, may not know that there's, in the opposite format, the mentee may not know that they have a sponsor or an advocate. But this person has their eye on them, they're keeping a look at their talent, they're seeing what opportunities they can line up for them, and hopefully are working to cultivate them into a leadership role in the organization as well. So they're advocating for the mentee or for the individual. And like I said, you may never know who your sponsors or your advocates are. A lot of those conversations have had precursors to them, but it's possible that someone could be behind closed doors right now making a case for your opportunities and you are not familiar with that either. So it can have a huge impact on a person's career, but isn't a two-way relationship. It's kind of one-sided opportunity. So going into the benefits of mentorship programs, I want to just call out that we often think about mentorship as being a benefit to the mentee. However, there's enormous benefits to an organization that institutes mentorship. And it can have an impact on either collectively an opportunity to build in for every kind of entry-level employee or mid-level management, whatever level it is that you're focusing on developing. But it can also have an impact in terms of strategic leadership development. So, particularly in tech and business, we're seeing low numbers of women and people of color rising in leadership positions. A lot of people talk about that as a pipeline issue. And that in many ways feels like kind of scapegoating. We're not having people interested in this, rather than we're not developing that leadership pipeline. We're not taking ownership of that issue. So mentorship is one way that you can really get at the heart of that. And we'll talk a little bit about the implications of pairing up people from dissimilar backgrounds and how you optimize that relationship. But it does provide an opportunity for you to elevate groups of people in your organization. Like we talked about already, this is an opportunity to develop leadership skills. It also is a way that you can increase the commitment of the employees to the organization. So if you're in a relationship where someone is actively mentoring you and actively developing you and talking about your future of the organization, it does have an impact on whether or not you are retained or you see a future for yourself there. Compare that to the experience of an entry-level employee who has no one talking about their future there, doesn't see what role they might be working toward, and is focused purely on the role that they're in at that moment. So, especially in startups, mentorship programs are a cool way to either kind of supplement or replace what is often in larger institutions an onboarding process. It's great for knowledge share and institutional knowledge being passed down, but this can also be a great way for someone to get to know what are the unofficial flows of power. How do things really work here? You often give people an employee manual that has how you ideally see things working. But how does it actually work? And how does a person that's entering into your organization navigate those dynamics? So it can provide both the approved knowledge of the organization, but also back channels and inside information that can help someone really grow and develop and step into roles as they become available. And then, like we talked about, it does develop the organizational leadership pipeline. So this is a great way to identify and build out people to have future leadership roles in the organizations, rather than just assuming that those people will step up when the opportunity arises. It has a great benefit in terms of culture and morale that people don't often think about as a business case, but very much is in terms of the value that an individual gets from being a part of the dyad, or they're part of the community. They feel, especially if you have a cohort of people that are going through that mentorship experience, that they can share those stories and feel like they are a part of something. They're part of the team, even outside of their dedicated work team. So it does really impact morale. And then for the mentors, especially if they're comfortable, if they've been in that role for a decade, if they've kind of figured it out and they're just maintaining what they're doing, having a mentee that is helping them see their role in the organization through fresh eyes can really reinvigorate and add excitement to someone's role that doesn't currently have those challenges in place. And also for retention. It is important that people have those opportunities to grow and be challenged, and providing mentorship to a new member of the team is one of the opportunities. So on the reduction of turnover question, there's, in any of those models, whether it's coaching, sponsorship, role models, there's I think, good benefit to establishing any opportunity for one-on-one development for team members. Those kind of universally have positive impacts on turnover. However, in mentorship programs, there's good case studies behind the positive impact on retention. So, and also retaining the people that you want to retain. So providing them a space to grow, even if there's not an opportunity to increase the community role, have the opportunity to develop their skill set and receive that kind of one-on-one attention. So what if you don't have a mentorship program and you don't establish it, even if you say we encourage mentorship, what might that look like? And chances are mentorship is already occurring in some way. Because mentorship has so many different variations, it's likely that most organizations have some form of it. But when it's unintentional, it can have the impact of people picking their mentees based on who reminds them of themselves. And so looking at the leadership pipeline issue, if you have an organization with primarily white males in leadership positions, and they are only choosing naturally and organically to mentor people that remind them of themselves or look like themselves, that doesn't disrupt that pipeline at all. It encourages the same level of promotions, the same people going into those roles, and it doesn't actually increase the number of women people of color contributing into it. So an unintentional mentorship program can have great benefits, and that can reduce turnover and have positive impact on culture, but it can also have very negative impact on culture because it's perceived as a track for maintaining the status quo, which is what a kind of a natural mentorship program that doesn't have that shaping can turn into. So that becomes a bit of an equity challenge if the people in leadership positions are just recruiting and mentoring people that remind them of themselves. So in looking at how you pair up dyads, traditionally the best practice is to say that you want to find people that come from a similar background or experience as the mentee to develop them. So someone that you have something in common with so that they can learn from your experience and imagine themselves in your shoes. Obviously, when we talk about the equity in this issue, that kind of challenge, we don't necessarily have people that have the exact same background for all of those roles that we might be trying to develop dyads around. So there are different ways of doing that. There are obviously different kinds of common ground. It might be extracurricular activities, it might be family structure, it might be regional origin, it might be, there are any number of things that you can find common ground around. But it is important that there be some kind of commonality that has the dyad paired together in a way that is positive to both. So whatever that might look like, it is important, but I wouldn't say it's as important as developing leadership that you don't currently have represented in your organizations. So there's a balance there. I'm going to pause here before we go into the specifics of actually developing your program, just to see if there's any questions about what we've covered so far or any areas that you want more information on. All right, cool. Well, feel free to jump in or just raise your hand if you have any questions as we keep going. With any program, I always recommend that people know what they're trying to get out of it before they start. Obviously, it's quite difficult to know whether you succeeded in the outcome if you don't know what the outcome is you're aiming for. So before you even sit down and figure out what structure of mentorship program you want to have in your organization, I would ask 3 questions. What are we trying to get out of this for the business, in terms of business practices, structures, profit benefits on that front, what do we want the benefit to be to our employees, and then what do we want the impact to be on new recruits? And the answer to any of those can be nothing. This mentorship program will have no impact on new recruits appointed to middle level management. Or this mentorship program will have no impact on existing employees, it's just for future employees. So being able to know what you want to have and what you don't, what the program is not intended to do, will be very helpful in terms of not trying to boil the ocean. And so once you've identified kind of your answers to those three things, really craft your mentorship program to achieve those goals rather than to achieve every possible goal. And I recommend that you begin every mentorship dyad with an assessment of where people are at. So what skills are you working to develop, or what opportunities are you working to develop with the mentees, and do a baseline assessment. That makes it a whole lot easier to compare where they're at by the end of the mentorship program and to see where you need to develop or improve your mentorship program. So that provides that baseline. It also helps you in the pairing. If you have, the more information you have about the people that you're trying to get mentorship for, the better you will be at pairing them with the person who can develop those skills. So this shouldn't be an exhaustive survey, but figuring out how you're going to document what specific skill sets, what specific opportunities you want to develop for that person, and getting information from them on where they're at will be helpful in terms of communication. For any pairing, you don't want to throw people into a relationship blind. I've been part of mentorship programs where the program goes so far as to set you up with a mentor that kind of leaves you to your own devices, which can be better than nothing, but also then can lead to frustration for dyad that don't have a great relationship or a kind of regular schedule or regular mechanism for that mentorship to happen. So, for example, I was part of a program this last year where every fellow was paired up with a mentor to help develop them. And I was assigned an executive coach who provided incredible mentorship, and she had schedules and agendas, and we followed up regularly, and she coached me through every single opportunity. And other people had mentors that met with them once a year. And it was one conversation, they got a little bit of feedback, they got a little bit of insight. It was mostly about the mentor, not really about them. And I don't think that had anything to do with that mentor or the cohort of mentors not wanting to develop the people that they were assigned to. It had a lot to do with them not having the proper training to understand what commitment was to be able to do. So mentorship is not a once-a-year occurrence. It's a regular relationship, it's ongoing, and it should develop and grow throughout the mentorship program, however long that might last. So a couple ideas for ways to get your dyads prepared so that they understand the relationship. And I'll start with kind of low-hanging fruit is online curriculum. There's several versions out there that you can look at from other mentorship programs, but just building an understanding on the mentor and mentee side of what the commitment is they're going to, how each of them should approach the conversation. So setting a standard for who's going to do the scheduling, where are you going to meet, who is it going to be convenient for, which it should always be convenient for the mentor. And on the mentee side, how do you not, a lot of mentees I work with, how do I not be a pain in the ass to my mentor? How do I not nag them? What do I know if it's too much communication or too many meetings? And so figuring out the ways to train both the mentor and the mentee on expectations for the program, which may be once every other week, it may be once a month, it might be more intensive half days once a month. It could take a lot of shapes in terms of the structure, and that depends on your bandwidth and budget. But having those clear expectations up front and having people universally go through that process of understanding before the program begins. Again, coming back to morale, if one person has an exceptional opportunity with a great mentor and they end up being a rising star in the organization, and someone else feels like they got to find someone who didn't really want to be a mentor and didn't take the time to, that can also lead to turnover as well. That person feels like they were denied an opportunity that they were supposed to receive. I prefer in-person trainings just because I think any opportunity you have to get the whole community of dyads together can help them learn from each other as well. The International Women's Day Mentorship, we actually have networking opportunities for all of the mentors that are part of the program. Every mentor I've ever invited to take part in that program said, well, I want a mentor too. And so I do think there's something to be said for a community of mentors who talk about best practices, who understand who the other people in the organization are that are part of the program, and can come to them. With something as simple as, I really want to find an opportunity for this person to speak on a project, but I don't have anything on my plate. Do you know something? How might I be able to position this person for leadership? Or, this person's really struggling with this one relationship, and I don't know what to advise them, or I don't know how to approach that. So that you have other people who are going through the same evolution with their mentees that can coach the other mentors as well. Yeah?
I was wondering, is there the potential of having a mentor and a direct manager of an employee offer a contradictory message. So a direct manager may have a certain expectation of the progression rate, where a mentor is saying, you know, learn as much as you can, try to accelerate as much as you can, and push for new opportunities, which could be diametrically opposed to who they're reporting to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's probably pretty common that that someone might have, the person that they directly report to, have different aspirations for them than someone who has an intimate knowledge of what they want to do with their career. Not everyone feels comfortable having those kind of long-term conversations with their bosses. And so the mentor can provide an alternative that I think can help shape the conversation that the mentee has with their boss. So I would say it should never be structured in a way where the mentor has the ability to promise achievements within the organization. And that's part of that setting clear expectations for the mentors before they begin. You know, it can become tense if a mentor is saying, you know, you're definitely going to get this opportunity, and the boss is saying you're not ready for that opportunity. That being said, a lot of people will leave organizations to get opportunities rather than staying within their own. And so that can cause an issue with high turnover as well, especially if you have a specific person in leadership role in a lot of direct reports that doesn't have the time to actually cultivate those conversations with each individual one. It can lead to someone saying, my boss doesn't think I'm ready for this, but I'm clearly beyond my capacity, or I'm clearly beyond what I'm currently doing. And if their only option or their only person that can provide that coaching for them is outside of the organization, it's likely that they'll leave it. Whereas I think the mentor shouldn't necessarily be seen as something contradictory to a boss or conflicting with it, but can provide an alternate perspective and some of that advice and guidance on how to approach it. So, for example, the first role that I began in college was at Ross Strategic, and they had a really interesting structure where every new employee was assigned a buddy and a coach. And the coach was really more of a sponsor in that structure, but I think is an interesting offering for an example of how you might structure that so that there's lots of opinions rather than just two. And the buddy was assigned for, you know, what are all those uncomfortable conversations and questions that a new employee might have that they don't feel comfortable asking their boss. And so, you know, like, what's the dress code? Where do I eat lunch? Is it okay that I eat lunch off campus? Should I stay here at my desk? No one seems to, you know, people are working 11 o'clock at night, and I expect to work 11 o'clock at night. Some of those questions are really difficult to ask your boss because you don't want to appear like you're not working as hard as other people. But they can be very confusing for an employee, especially if they're entry level and haven't worked in an organization like that before. So the buddy was someone at a similar level of the organization that provided a space for you to ask those uncomfortable questions. And then the coach was someone who was providing that strategic thinking with the employee around where they go in the organization. I was lucky to have a third prong of that, which was someone that mentored me. Ultimately, I think if you set the expectations correctly, a mentor or a mentee should see that as a benefit to have as many alternate views as you possibly can. Because if all you get is one piece of advice and you don't like that piece of advice, you'll probably go somewhere else to get better advice rather than staying in the organization. Whereas if you have multiple people giving you guidance on how you might develop or how you might grow, then it's likely that you'll be getting a good rounded piece of advice that you can solve this together. Is that kind of answer what you guys were wondering about there? Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm happy to keep talking about that afterwards. There's lots of different ways you can structure it to make it non-conflicting. The other way to go about it is to host workshops for employees. So especially if you're going to be offering this as something that people opt into, to provide regular opportunities. These can just be hour-long workshops or half-day workshops where people can come together and practice mentoring and being mentees. And so, you know, I think the Speed Mentorship program that I was just talking about a little while ago is a good example of that. Kind of an immersive version of practicing mentorship. And the way we structure it is you have 7 minutes of mentorship with someone that you've been assigned to meet with or that we feel like is a good fit for you, and then you transition to the next. And so in this case, you know, a mentee might meet with 5 different people during that workshop, and at the end of it, able to say, that's the person I want to work with. And the mentors will have the same opportunity. They'll get to interact with a handful of different people and go, I really have a great connection with this person. I want to help develop them. I'm excited for their career. And ultimately, that's what you really want in a mentor, is someone who is excited about the person they're developing. Because if they're not, they will not give it their all. They will not be a positive experience for the mentee. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of both members of the dyad opting in. If anyone is forced to be a mentor or is forced to be a mentee, it can actually be harmful to both of their careers. So making sure that you know, even if this is something that you want to require in your organization, to make sure that it's an opt-in opportunity. So I would suggest if it's something that you want to establish as a required program universally, that you be very careful about providing a lot of training, probably over the course of years building up to that, to transition people into that. Most programs will focus on a smaller group of people. And so that gives you the opportunity, if you're curating the mentorship proposal or program, to meet with everyone beforehand and suss out, is this the right fit for the program? But people should opt into being a mentor, they should opt into being a mentee, and they should opt into the person that they're paired with. Those are all essential steps. So I like to provide an initial agenda for people to talk over at the first DIA meeting. So some of the stuff they would have gone over in training, but what are our expectations for communication? Where are we going to meet? How often are we going to meet? And what are we going to do in preparation for that? Especially for the mentee, to know what's expected of them from their mentor before they even get there. So I have one mentee who comes every time with her own agenda. Here are the 3 things that I want to cover today. Here's where I'm at, things we talked about last time. And I have other people that I mentor more loosely, where it might be, you know, we're talking about bigger picture items and evolving their career over a longer period of time. So, but having that structure and having that agreement can help the relationship succeed so that the mentee and mentor have the same expectations for how it will unfold. And then for programmatic within an organization, I think it's essential to have a contract that solidifies that. So maybe you don't have a universal standard for how this will look, but once the DIA meets and agrees on what their structure will look like, to have them commit to it in written form, so this is not an optional side project, but a part of their job. And then ultimately, this has to be a question, but if you have the time to fully develop a mentorship program, in the dream ideal version of it, you would also provide continuing engagement opportunities for those DIAs, which can look a lot of different ways. But on the low end of the spectrum could be making sure that they have some kind of project to work on together. And this gets that kind of the conflicting advice of a boss versus a mentor, because if you have a mentor who hasn't worked directly with the mentee on a project, they have a theoretical understanding through the lens of the mentee skills. So if we're in a mentorship relationship and we're meeting once a month to talk about your skill set and where you're going to go and all those things, and I'm like, man, she's incredible, she does all these things, and obviously your strengths are X, Y, and Z. If I've never worked on a project with you, maybe X, Y, and Z is how you see yourself, but not how everyone else in your team sees you. And so I might be giving you completely unrealistic advice on how you should develop your skills. Whereas if you can find opportunities for a mentor and mentee to work together on something, it's going to be a huge project, but some area where they can come together and collaborate with mentor and mentee, you can see how each other work. Same thing on the mentee side. A mentee might be paired up with a mentor, but then when they get out on a project together, goes like, wow, that is not the way I want to manage, or wow, that is like a different leadership theory than I work under. To be able to notice where those divergences are, that'll help them also figure out what advice to take and what advice to pass on. Ultimately, a mentor shouldn't demand that a mentee follows all of their advice, but I think having them have that working environment or project environment is going to help us out where are the areas that they can work on together. That can also look like volunteer activities. You know, a simple scale of it would be setting up, you know, with Seattle Works half day volunteer opportunity for all of your DIAs. And so they come together, work together, mentors can connect with other mentors, mentees can connect with other mentees, and it can create a form that comes to the DIA, or a cohort, that is. So we kind of already talked about some of this, the dedicated projects, volunteer activity. The last thing piece is how can the members of your program promote the program to other potential members. So especially on the mentee side, we don't always see the potential in our employees while they're there. Oftentimes we'll see people be promoted out of our organizations and then rise up really quickly somewhere else. And we think, hey, like, well, why weren't they behaving that way in my organization? Why weren't they knocking it out of the park here? And I think the piece of that comes to recognizing strengths while you have them. So not assuming that someone that comes in an entry level, you know, admin role isn't the next CEO of your company. Maybe not the next, but you know, but to be able to acknowledge that if you are only seeing someone's entry point, how are you going to gauge or measure outside of performance reviews what they're looking for, what they want to accomplish, and how they can get there? So having mentees and mentors talk about their experience, whether that's at staff meetings or off-campus retreats or just in their day-to-day life or in their team meetings, to have some kind of report out function so that DIAs can talk about, here's our experience. And it might just be that, once a quarter, a pair of DIAs get up and talk about a project that they recently completed together. Make it exciting and interesting for mentors and mentees to choose to opt into that program. And then at the end of whatever term it is, which I would recommend starting with 1-year programs. So having a relationship that is structured for 1 year with regular check-ins and regular engagement opportunities throughout that. But whatever timeline you put it on, have an assessment at the end or middle of that timeline so that you can see, are we actually moving the needle on any of these areas? And to the point about morale, like one of those areas might be, how do you feel about your chances of working here in 5 years? That might be one of the metrics that you put in place. And if at the end of the mentorship program, they're less likely to stay there in 5 years, that might mean a lot of different things. So it's not that that data means everything. It might be that that mentor provided such exceptional coaching that that person is now prepared for something totally different that is a much better fit for their skill set. But it could also mean that that mentorship pairing was not a positive pairing, it wasn't the right commitment, or it wasn't structured correctly, or they had different expectations. But that can help you as the organizer of the program really assess, are we on the right track? What adjustments do we need to make this a more positive experience for the next cohort? So it gives you that kind of comparison ability. And then to set up regular times to hear feedback from both members of the dyad when they're not in the same room, I think is important as well. So a mentee that might feel like they were paired with the wrong person, or is jealous that another mentor provides better coaching, or whatever it might be, to have an opportunity to sit down and hear, how are things going? Is this what you expected? What more do you want out of this? Is this too much? Like, what's the commitment look like? And the same on the mentor side. That way you don't have people that begin opting out unintentionally. So halfway through the program saying, all right, we'll meet once a quarter instead of once every other week. Like, that's the signal of something's not quite fit, whether that's the expectations or not, but to have the touch point so that you are an external force in that dyad that can provide insight into, well, hey, you both changed projects, and now this person's working in a different country. Maybe we should shift the way this dyad works. But you can provide that customization for folks while they're in it. And then at the end of any program, people should be given the opportunity to opt back in again. So not to require people to continue that mentorship, but like I said at the beginning, if you establish a really healthy mentorship relationship, chances are that you grow together, you become friends in a way, you become invested in each other's careers, and ultimately to give people an opportunity to re-up and re-engage through that program is healthy. They may choose to do it outside of the program, maybe they want something totally different, but to make sure that you give that opportunity for folks to continue. So that is kind of the nuts and bolts of the baseline structure of the mentorship program. I'd love to answer any questions that folks have, or if anyone has a specific program that they want to develop in their organizations, I'm happy to talk. If we want to talk specifically, maybe together, about how we structure that. Yeah?
Could you talk a little bit more about the connecting?
Yeah. So my favorite version of that is a brief survey and then some kind of one-on-one conversation, depending on how large the program is. Some of the baseline questions would be around, job satisfaction, future roles, but also what specific skill sets, opportunities, expertise someone wants to develop. So rather than capturing this is someone that is in a communications role, and so we're going to become a communications mentor, where do they want to be in the medium term future? So if someone's in communication, what we really want to go into is like analytics, to not assign them a communications coach, because that would be contrary to their own professional development. That can be difficult if you are their boss doing that assessment. So I think it's important to structure any survey that you're asking people to disclose what their aspirations are for their current or future roles in your organization, to have some kind of caveat that says none of this information will be used in consideration for your salary or promotions or career track, and won't be shared with your supervisor. So having those so that people feel able to talk about their aspirations more openly. And then I would suggest actually having your mentors established up front so that people can say, here are the people I'd like to be paired with. So if you have a group of, let's say, 20 mentees and 20 mentors for your first year of the program, and you know who those people are, I generally grab bios from everyone and distribute them both ways. So mentors then say, here are the 5 people with, based on their aspirations and what they're looking for, I think I can really help. Mentees say the same, and then it's just a numbers game. A very tedious pairing. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have a minimum threshold of how many is that a program, like how small or
If we had more time, one of the things that I wanted to do is to show you how we might organize it in the startup. Because a lot of startups maybe have like 3-5 people. And so a traditional program that's like really strategic and finds the exact right mentor maybe not possible. But I like the idea of figuring out how you can structure co-mentorship outside of traditional meetings. So in a startup, like at CrossFit, for example, when we were 9 people, I had two staff members that I personally mentored. So it wasn't a weekly meeting that we were checking on their projects, but a monthly conversation about their goals and their strategies and mapping it out and mapping out opportunities in that way. I think you can, in that case, have the supervisor or the boss be the same person that's doing the mentorship, but again, it doesn't need to be an opt-in. So I don't know that I would say there's a minimum number of people you need to start a program. I think you can start a program with 2 people. If you have a startup with a founder and 1 person that's supporting it, that's actually kind of a beautiful opportunity to provide that mentorship, because ultimately you're probably going to want that first employee to wear 8 different hats. And so the founder can provide some of that coaching. There's also room for bringing people from the outside when you have a startup. So finding people within the community with similar industry that you are in line with the way that they develop with approach to the relationship and can provide that opportunity. Ideally, I think it's great when you have a larger cohort that people can learn from as well, like mentors learning from mentors, mentees learning from mentees. But in a startup, that sometimes just isn't possible.
Yeah. Do you have suggestions for when you have people in the mentee position who would really like to get more out of their mentor, but their mentor is just busy? Not necessarily that there's a personality match problem, but just, they're, off to China half the time or whatever. It can get kind of tedious to be like, hey, it's me again. Are there other things that you've seen work?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why having a solid contract up front that talks about regularity meetings. So even if someone is traveling, to make sure that gets rescheduled, that they have a minimum of an X amount of engaged opportunities in X period of time. I wouldn't go less than once a month. Ideally, it would be every other week, but that is a luxury in some organizations that they don't have that enough staff time. So I think there's a lot that the mentee can do, structure it in a way that there's less pressure on the mentor. So things like that include making the location of meetings really convenient for the mentor. I wouldn't advise doing it in the mentor's office, because that's a very interesting power dynamic that may not result in mentorship so much as coaching, which can be very different. So I recommend people get out of the office environment, whether that's just going to a local coffee shop or a lunch spot. Everyone needs to eat. Most hero leaders I know drink coffee. So figuring out how a mentee can get on board with something that's convenient for the mentor, such as, can we meet during lunch at X time once a month, and all come with everything prepared. So the mentor doesn't need to do anything beforehand, you can just show up and have, like I was talking about the mentee that I have right now who comes with an agenda. She puts that in front of me, and I can just scan that and go, all right, great, let's talk about this, and then focus in those areas. So I would say finding ways that the mentee can just make it as low barrier as possible for the mentor. But it should also be that the mentors know what they're committing to up front. If a mentor really doesn't have the time to meet once a month, then it probably is a great opportunity for that person to engage. And I might recommend, in that case, that they hold off until the next cohort happens to see if they have more time at that point.
Yeah, what software, or is there any software platforms that you use or utilize for this?
For software.
Yeah.
I mean, one of you develop that. When you do, I will be happy to join on as advisor with that team. I just use low-tech solutions for it yet. There's some programs that have been developed by specific corporate entities that work for them, but I haven't seen many open source versions of it yet. There's still an evolving body of research around what the business impact of mentorship is. And so I think a lot of companies are hesitant to spend money on developing programs and tech for it until people know this is a business necessity.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can leave probably maybe some parts which answer my questions. Basically, I have 3 questions. First, do you think any organization should have this kind of mentorship program?
Yes.
And then, do you think, okay, we need to have a formalized systematic mechanism established to initiate this program? And lastly, do you think we should always employ services like you provide to help us build and operate these therapies?
I'm gonna work backwards through this. I don't think that if you have the budget for bringing on a consultant to help organize it, it can be really helpful. But there are a ton of resources and great books out there on developing mentorship programs. So I see no problem with any one of you being the instigator for a mentorship program in your organization without outside help. The expertise that comes into it is just in time of getting to know your mentors and mentees to make sure that the pairings are right, making sure you're giving them engagement opportunities, and providing coaching for the people in the dyad so that they have someone to go to with concerns or questions or ideas. But I don't know that it needs to be something that you bring in an external team to organize for you unless you don't have the capacity. Because it is time, it's time commitment. So I would say if you don't have the time to develop it, then yeah, you're gonna wanna bring someone in. But if you do have the time, then I think you're completely capable of running it yourself. The question about structured institutionalized mentorship program versus kind of organic mentorship. So we talked a little bit about that earlier. And I'll go back to that slide. There's some, it's likely that an organization without a structured institutional mentorship program would have some organic mentorship occur. And that can be great. But it can also have some negative impacts on the equity of your pipeline development. So people that generally organically opt into mentoring someone often pick someone that aligns with themselves. And so when we look at the people that are currently filling senior level leadership, particularly in tech and business, it's often white men that are filling those roles. And so if you're trying to build a pipeline of equitable representation for women and people of color, if the senior level leaders are only mentoring people that align with themselves, it's unlikely to make a dent in that. So I would say I have some concerns about organic mentorship, not that it's not beneficial for the people that receive it, but it can cause some tension for the people that don't receive it, and can become a concern of equity for the organization. And to your first question, yes, I absolutely believe mentorship programs have a place in every organization of every size. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to flip to my contact information on the end here, and I also have some business cards, but if you have any questions and you want to chat more, I'm happy to, if you're interested in more resources, I'm happy to send you my favorite mentorship books if you'd like to geek out about it. And I do hope that you consider developing a program, even if it's on the the baseline level, carrying out and running a 3-month mentorship program as a pilot. There can be real long-term benefits to even just doing a 3-month program. So if you're on the fence and trying to decide whether it's worthwhile, try it out, with a small cohort and just see how it unfolds for you. Well, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have Paul Wagner and Jenny Long come and talk about
so far? Interesting as always. Very, I wonder whether I'm pushing aside things I really shouldn't have, things that are interesting. So I'm gonna have to pay them.
Yeah.
You're Elizabeth Scanlon, right?
Yes, I am.
My name is Mark Parkinson.
Nice
I
to
was
meet you.
at Columbia Towers at Bruce Allen event that you moderated, the AR people.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. What did you think of it? You liked it? I didn't like it.
I thought you did a good job moderating. I think that it's a really fast-moving, evolving space. It's very hard to really track it and see how and where it is what's best.
Yeah, there's so many great applications though. I mean, especially this in the next 4 years, it's just people need to jump in now and help figure out and shape it. Because if not us, other people will.
Sure.
Right, and so we did either, so that's what I think is just kind of exciting too, is there's so much opportunity. But yeah, it's no easy plug and play. And there's no archetypes of what works,
And the
there's no
tools don't really.
they're just not really there
do
yet.
that, no.
Right, and so, but if Apple actually does put out their AR this June, I mean, it could be a little game changer, and then it's like, oh, the tools are all there. I mean, that's how.
Right, or when Microsoft drops the price on their device into something that's reasonable.
Right, but it still needs some development, I
Oh,
think,
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And it's not really consumer grade yet. So yeah, it's just going to be a very fascinating time with AR, but it's now or never. I think for Seattle, if we don't really engage, if we don't actually go out, if we're not part of this discussion, other cities, other areas
And
are.
Seattle has a bunch of stuff going for it, but it's unclear, how it sorts itself out. But, the cloud is here and is well established. The question is, can you leverage what's already here?
Right. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And if they do it smart, right? There's a lot of ways they can mess it up, and they don't have to be inclusive if they don't want to, and some aren't. And I think that's going to be a detriment. We saw that with Facebook, with Oculus. The reason that HTC Vive is so big in the community is because they partnered early and fast and engaged the community in a way that Facebook just never has, that Oculus just didn't do. And so I think, it'll be very interesting to see now that the leadership's changed on Oculus, if all of a sudden now we'll see some big changes to back into engagement with the community and the innovators. But yeah, I mean, it's
The wild card.
it's a wild card. It is. I love it though. I love the wild ride. Because there's not very many times in history you get to actually watch industries get created. I mean, yes, it's been 30, 50 years in the making, but I think now it's really watching.
So what do you think about, well, I got two questions. One is, what industries are picked up first?
Obviously, there's two, entertainment, component one, and then the second one, the real application is real estate.
Really?
Real estate architect, so outside of entertainment, all those movies, amusement parks, etc. I think architecture is just the easiest thing. They already have all the drawings in 3D CAD. It's really easy to start doing tours of your
So
houses.
is there work going on in the
Oh,
intersection of
tons.
3D CAD? Is someone here?
Active Adobe
Or no, or
Professionals.
someone in Seattle?
Oh, yeah, Adobe.
Oh.
I mean, Adobe's doing tons of stuff.
Okay.
All of their
Well,
product
that would
now
make
has VR
sense.
extension. Lots of architect firms are doing it. VR Studios is helping out architect firms. They have a huge warehouse. If you wanted to, create a virtual world where you have your people look at the development sites, lots of cool stuff happening. So I see architects, and then of course health has huge implications, which we've seen at medicine, with burn victims, being transported into a snowy area and not feeling.
Oh, wow.
Burns, they're reabandoned. Oh yeah, I mean, there's some really, really cool applications in house. So architecture, I think is easy because there's tons of money in building and real estate. So when you're going to put in like a $50 million development, you probably want to see the virtual reality scale of it first. And then you're going to want to see it in healthcare. And then from there, then I think it will unlock, for everybody.
Just a lot of tools will be more robust and pricing will be down.
Exactly. Okay, well, it was good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I have to go around to give a tour to the delegation from France downstairs.
Okay, enjoy.
Yes, so I'll see you later.
Yep, have a good day.
Hello, thanks for being here with us today. My name is Tamara, and this is Paul Ryder, and I'm old student at the University of Washington School of Law with our California Law Clinic. And sitting back there are Ashley and Ken. They're attorneys for data structure, maybe in know, because they're supervising this to make sure we're saying who we are. So our presentation is going to be on contractors versus employees. And this is a very sort of complicated area with a lot of nuances, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. So what we ask is if you could write down your questions, and we'll save those for the end when our very supervising attorney, who knows more about this topic, I'm sure about those questions if you don't have the answers. And so I'll just give a brief sort of overview of what we'll go over. I'll start with talking about some of the pros and cons of contractor versus employee. And then Paul will talk about some of the issues with misclassifications and the problem that could arise from that. And we'll go into how you can differentiate a contractor from an employee. And then we'll try to play with some hypotheticals to really flesh out the concept. And we'll end with some recommendations for best practices. And before we get started, just a disclaimer that we're not here to provide legal advice, and these are just general knowledge on this topic. If you have any questions in terms of your own business, then it's best to consult your legal counsel. And just before we get started, just for raise your hand, who here has made hiring decisions in the past? So about half of the room. And so for our presentation, we want to introduce our protagonist, Steve. So Steve is the CEO of Startup Inc. And he's a recent graduate, has worked on a startup company. And his business is doing pretty well and it's growing pretty quickly. And Steve needs more help to grow his business. So Steve wants to engage a worker, Wendy. So Steve is considering hiring Wendy as a full-time employee, because that way he'll have more control over day-to-day work, and he can have her help him with more projects. However, Steve isn't sure if he wants to engage Wendy for a long period of time, and there are other issues that he has to think about. If he hires Wendy as an employee, he has to consider this long list of law that comes with hiring an employee, such as, to name a few, the Fair Labor Standards Act and the American with Disabilities Act. And so, and you also have to think about these other obligations. Hiring an employee is usually more expensive than hiring a contractor, because people have to pay tax and insurance, and you'll have an Affordable Care Act, and you have a certain number of employees, you'll also have to provide medical insurance for his employees. And so, because Steve doesn't want to have all these financial and regulatory burdens, and this is a startup that doesn't necessarily have a lot of cash at hand to hire an employee, Steve is considering hiring Wendy as a contractor, and that will allow him to not have to meet with some of these regulatory burdens. So what Steve does is he sends Wendy a standard offer letter, and instead of calling her an employee, he calls her an independent contractor. So here Steve thinks that he's smart and he can get away with this. And he still has Wendy works on a bunch of projects, and he still has a lot of control over her work. Well, there's going to be some issues with these, and Paul will tell you more about those issues.
All right, so Steve thinks he's good. Steve thinks Wendy is a contractor. Wendy thinks Wendy is a contractor. Everything should be fine, right? Everybody understands what's going on. However, Steve gets a letter from Ian with the IRS, and he finds out that as far as the IRS is concerned, Wendy is not Steve's contractor. She's his employee. And so Steve owes back taxes to the government on all the money that he should have been paying Wendy as an employee. He also finds out that there are all of these other state and federal agencies that also consider Wendy to be an employee. So he has a variety of negative consequences that he's now facing, including wages and overtime paid to Wendy, employee benefits, stock options, retirement, health coverage. Potentially, if Wendy gets disabled while she's working, he could cover disability payments and workers' comp. Like I mentioned before, he has federal tax obligations. He also might have state tax obligations. And if Wendy or one of these agencies decides to sue Steve for misclassifying Wendy, he could face damages or other penalties from the government agencies. So how do you tell if your worker is your employee or your contractor? Well, like we've seen earlier, it's not about what you think, and it's not about even what your worker thinks. It's an objective test that agencies use and courts use to determine, based on the facts and circumstances of the work that your worker is doing and the relationship you have with them. So these are some main factors that I pulled out. There are so many different tests. This is not a concrete list of all the factors that the court will consider. This is not a concrete list of all the factors that a government agency will consider. But I did pull these out as really important factors to consider when you are planning on how to treat a worker to make sure they're either an independent contractor or an employee, depending on which outcome you want. So the first one is economic dependence. The more economically dependent your worker is on you, the more they seem like an employee versus a contractor. The next is ability to control. The more you are managing how this worker does their work, the more they seem like an employee and less like a contractor. Also, the scope of work. The more defined the scope of work that this person is doing for you, the more that they're going to seem like an independent contractor. The more you're just assigning them random tasks to accomplish based on the day-to-day needs of your organization, the more they're going to seem like an employee. The next is how integral is the work this person is doing for you, to your business. If you're absolutely relying on this person's work for your business to operate and exist and bring in revenue, they're going to seem a lot more like an employee than a contractor. The next thing to look at is, are you training this person on how to do the work? If you are training them, they're going to seem a lot more like an employee than a contractor. And finally, this is a good determination to look at, although it's, I would say, of all of these, the least definitive. Are you paying this worker by the hour? If you're paying them a set amount of money to accomplish a set task, they're going to seem more like a contractor. If you're paying them by the hour and you're handing them new tasks all the time, they're going to seem more like an employee. Okay, so these are some of the main tests that employers in Washington State are going to face. There's the economic realities test that the Department of Labor uses. The control test, and that's my favorite test, that the IRS uses. The common law Darden test that is used by many different agencies, including the ones listed here. And then you have these 4 Washington State tests that apply to different legal protections Washington State gives its employees. And there's going to be a handout at the table back there that you can pick up on your way out that has links to websites where you can find specific information about these tests. Okay, now I picked out my favorite factors. These are some factors that courts are going to consider when they're making these determinations. Let's say one of your supposed contractors sues you for employee benefits. Courts aren't necessarily, depending on the jurisdiction, going to be bound by any one test that I've described so far, or by the factors that I outlined earlier. They're going to look at any or all of these factors, and maybe even some additional factors when they make these determinations. Okay, this is a good, I think, broad way to visualize the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. So on the left, we have some sort of hallmarks of a worker who is an employee rather than a contractor. And on the right, we have the opposite. So at the top, we have the way they receive compensation, who they're receiving compensation from, how they set their schedule, how they decide how to do their work, where they're working, and for the duration that they're working. All right, Vinny's going to go over our first hypothetical to help you understand some more specific examples of when a worker might be an employee and when they might be an independent contractor. And I'm going to jump in as we go through this.
So we came up with several hypotheticals just to really flesh out everything. So for the first one, let's say Steve needs help with his website and he hires Xander to write some code for his website, paying him $300 for the completion of the coding, and Xander is working from his home office. So just from what we've told you, do you think Xander is a contractor or an employee?
Contractor.
Yeah, so he's probably a contractor because he's working from his own office. Steve is not in control of any of his, the process of his work, and he's paid a specific amount. And now I'm going to change up the information a little bit, just to play around with that.
Okay, now Xander doesn't just have this one project. He has 9 other projects for 3 other clients. And all of the projects are essentially the same as the project that he's doing for Steve in all the particulars. So in this situation, does Steve look more like, or does Xander look more like an employee or an independent contractor? Okay.
And what if Xander gets 90% of his revenue from buying from Steve?
Still.
Do you think so, a contractor? In this case, we were actually trying to plot a hypothetical where we thought Xander looked much more like an employee, as he's economically dependent on Steve for the vast majority of his income.
Just for a specific period of time. For example, that's just.
You're ahead of us.
You're way ahead of us.
So for the next one, Steve only provides 10% of Xander's revenue. And we're trying to get at here is that if Xander gets 90% of his revenue from Steve within like a whole year, and it's like either he's an employee or it's like a month, and it's like that no amount.
Like we pulled out, the duration of the work and the duration of his income is an important factor for judging whether or not someone is dependent on their, let's not call them an employee, on the person they're working for. All right, so now we have the same situation. Xander's only providing 10%, Steve's only providing 10% of Xander's revenue, but he tells him what type of computers to use. He has him work in his office, tells him when to come in and when to leave, requires him to adhere to his employee dress code, and has him submit his code at the end of the day for feedback. So more like an employee or more like a contractor? We agree. We also think employee. Even though Steve's only providing a small amount of Xander's revenue, he's exerting so much control over Xander within the scope of the work that he's doing for him that while Xander likely could be viewed as a contractor for his other clients, he's looking a lot like an employee for Steve.
So now instead of the last hypo where Steve required that Xander work from and not a certain hour to another hour, he says that Xander is allowed to be in the office at 12 to 5, but doesn't require him to be in the office.
So employee, why do you think so employee?
If I'm a contractor, I think I do everything on my own. I don't need to access your server. I don't need to stay in your office. But if you require me to stay in your office, it seems to be actually employee.
So if Steve sent the information to Xander let's say he had a courier bring a USB drive over to him with the information, that would that put him more towards a contractor? You know, okay, I guess we're all the ones giving the presentation. We think because he's not requiring him to come in at any specific time, he just Xander to do the project that he's been hired to do. He needs access to this information that's in Steve's servers, and let's say, for the sake of this example, this is information that Steve really wants to keep tightly secure. He doesn't want a chance that someone else is going to be able to access this confidential information, and that's why Xander needs to come in and do work on site. But otherwise, he's not supervising them anyway. And under those circumstances, we look at him as more of a contractor. But obviously, you know, rational honesty disagrees with him.
For these factors, none of them are really determinative, so like one factor can like sway like the forward agency one way or another, and it's really looking at the totality of all the factors combined, so it's very squishy. So what if Steve is intending to pay Xander with equity instead of cash? Would that change whether he's a contractor or an employee?
Would that turn on like vesting issues at that point?
Yeah, but goes to a different area.
Let's say there's no vesting issues. He's just going to get equity. It's fully vested right away.
I'd say that that's probably still a contractor.
I would agree. It's actually, I think it's similar to Facebook, paying one of their contractor equity for paying Monroe, is it?
Yeah.
And they ended up having to give them like a lot of money for that's it. So, something to think about.
Okay, now in this situation, Steve's still working for Xander, or Xander's still working for Steve, but Steve's reimbursing him for his expenses and purchases medical insurance to cover him while he's working on the project. Okay, yeah. So we think so too. Providing any sort of employee benefits is going to make your workers look a lot more like an employee, even though it might be attractive because you don't have to pay the same amount of taxes on providing insurance that you would on just a straight wage or a straight sum of cash. You're going to want to avoid doing that just so that there's no implication created that this person is your employee rather than your worker.
So now we're going to go over some best practices to sort of keep an independent contractor prevent them from becoming an employee. And we have to say that none of these are determinative, and the employee versus contractor sort of test is very fact-based. So these are just some best practices to help businesses. So first, to keep the independent contractors file separate from the employee file. And if it's possible, find an independent contractor with a corporate entity, like an ELC or a C Corp, or some kind of like their own business and them having their own business. And also make it clear that the independent contractor is free to offer his or her service to other clients as well. And try to use independent contractors who do have other clients. You don't want those to be working only for you. And if it's possible, avoid using former employees as independent contractors. And also avoid using independent contractors for work that is integral to your business, so work that are key aspects of your business. And require them to sign a W-9 form, which is the request for a taxpayer identification number and certification. And also establish a written contract to really establish an employee status, and we'll go over the written contract. So in this written contract, you want to really spell out the intent of both parties and lay out the responsibility of the contractor and describe services and time frame and how much you're paying them. and also be specific about expectations of the contractor. And also have a sort of a clause saying that they're responsible for liability and worker compensation and insurance, as well as for paying their own taxes and benefits. And we also think it's best to use the term engage instead of hire in your form. And of course, if you have any questions or anything, make sure to consult a legal counsel. This is a very hard area, and it's easy to move one way or another.
All right, like we talked about earlier, you don't want to reimburse your contractors for any business expenses, and you don't want to provide them with any sort of employee type benefits, any paid vacations, sick leave, or any retirement benefits. Also, don't schedule the hours or the days that your contractors are going to be working. You can give them a deadline to complete a project, but if you want them to still be considered a contractor, you can't outline how they're going to spend their time. Obviously, don't have them wearing your uniforms, and don't impose any of the workplace requirements on them that you have on your employees if you do have them working on site. And again, if they are on site or if they're off site and you have them on some sort of email server, don't invite them to any of your employee-only events or any staff meetings or anything like that. No corporate retreats with the contractors. And then also don't give your contractors and don't let your contractors use business cards that give the implication that they're working for your company. It's okay potentially to let them list you as a reference on a website or something like that to say that they have done work for you, if that's not information that you want to be kept confidential pursuant to any NDA you might have them sign. But definitely don't let them be walking around with cards and make it seem like they work for you. And if you have any issues with their performance, like you don't feel like they're working enough, or you don't feel like they're going to complete the project by the deadline, this needs to be addressed not as some sort of disciplinary or performance issue. You're not going through human resources or anything like that if your business is large enough to have human resources. You want to view it as a contract issue. So either they're in breach, or if you want to change something about what they're doing or the way that they do it, you need to go back and modify the original contract. It's really important that you don't change up what they're doing without changing the original contract or drawing up a new contract to specify the new things that they're doing. One of the factors that courts and agencies are going to look at to determine an employee versus an independent contractor is if you keep changing their tasks. If you just keep assigning them new things to do based on the needs of your company, that's going to make them look a lot more like an employee. And again, don't control how they code, how they write emails to anyone they have to reach out to get information. You don't want to be controlling anything about how they perform. You can outline in the contract requirements for the work that gets done, specifications for what you want to happen, for the work product you want to produce. But you can't be sending them emails, do things this way, do things that way. They're going to look a lot more like employees and look like you're controlling them. All right. It looks like Christina's not back yet, but I think we can still start fielding questions if anyone has anything.
Is there a point where you transition a contractor to an employee, and how do you keep that? Is there any tips or maybe tricks to the right work that moralities?
I think that's in a way more of a business decision if you want to engage your independent contractor as a full-time employee. And once that happens, then you send out an official offer letter and renegotiate some of the terms and just go through the formality of hiring an employee.
Yeah, one thing an employer could do is go through a very formal hiring process like Ben talked about. Put a job posting up on wherever you typically post jobs, on your website, on some sort of employment website. Conduct interviews, definitely have them come in for an interview. Wait until any project that they have with you is complete before you do any of this, definitely before you hire them or send out an offer. You just want to make it look like consider their contract work for you as part of their employment, and then you owe all of these obligations because of that. So you want to have a very clean break between the work of the contractor and employee. Although I don't think we would recommend this without knowing more. This is sort of an inversion of the common best practice not to hire your former employees as contractors. You're sort of hiring a former contractor as an employee. I think you potentially, if you follow these formalities, you and employer could be okay, but you shouldn't follow these formalities.
I've done consulting in the past, started my own small firm, one-man shop basically, and it wasn't uncommon for me to have a sole client for a specific period of time. And operationally, when I would bid on a contract, it was based on an hourly rate that we negotiated for that duration. So I would invoice based on how many hours it took me to hit a certain milestone. So it seems to be now there's much more of a gray area with those types of elements. And I don't think I've ever had a situation, well, once, where I was able to do the work remotely, especially with larger established companies. They wanted face time. So even when they hired a contractor, they wanted to be able to walk out on the floor and see your desk. I always had a dedicated desk on site, but I was an independent contractor. I did have a 1099 with them, but it's through my company, not me as an individual.
And I think that's not uncommon, and I think the other factors that the court will look at is how much control they have over your work. So are they like supervising you like on a day-to-day basis, or do you have to report to them once you're done with the project, or check in from time to time? So it really depends on the other facts.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that the government is starting to crack down on this a lot more, especially with companies such as Uber and Lyft, where this is becoming a bigger issue. So they're taking a closer look at this issue now. And it is just kind of a totality of the circumstances. So you're right in that, you may have a desk there, you may be being paid hourly, and so those factors would go for you more as an employee, but then there are several other factors that the court would look at, such as the fact that you had multiple customers in the past that the court would also look like. So it's not that one factor is persuasive over everything else.
Do you have any other questions?
What steps should you take to hire an employee as a independent contractor after the terminated the employment relationship?
I think you have to personally terminate the employee-employer relationship, so make sure that's all done with, and they terminate their time. And after that, just have really clear established guidelines and the contract for the new engagement.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're not treating them the same way that you were before you terminate their employment relationship. But the fact is you're just changing the paperwork, but then everything else is staying the same, then that's not a good fact.
I also think a little bit earlier, talking about transitioning between employee and independent contractor, it's good for a business to kind of keep up and make sure, okay, are we, maybe they were an independent contractor a year ago, but things have changed, business has changed, we ask them to do different things, maybe they can consider an employee now. So always kind of keep up on that.
Well, thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
You as well?
Good job.
Thank you, Joe.